Hello and welcome once again. This is the opening keynote of LEAP 2026. In the session, we want to explore this world of the AI infrastructure and the crisis that is plaguing your AI initiative. Specifically, here we are going to be talking about the 7 critical challenges that are holding back the financial services industry from achieving the AI outcomes that you're expecting. The reason for financial services here, where we need to pay attention to this a little bit more than perhaps a few other industries, is that the impact of getting things right and the impact of potentially getting things wrong can be highly, highly consequential. So we want to make sure that we are on the right track, that we are going full speed ahead, but with a degree of caution and the guardrails that would essentially make sure that we are achieving the things that we want to achieve. So with that, I want to start off with a few trends that I've come across over the course of the last few months, potentially towards from the starting of the end of 2025. Some of the reports here, which we will link later on, there are a couple of stats that probably highlight where the financial services industry is going when it comes to adoption of AI in different facets of its own domain. Starting off with a market size of $123 billion. The global AI in finance market was valued at $9.45 billion in 2021 and is projected to reach $123 billion by the year 2032. It seems well on its way to getting there. Therefore, there's a lot of excitement that comes as a result of it. The spending has increased. The AI spending is growing at a 29% CAGR with $35 billion spent in 2023 and is expected to reach $97 billion by 2027. And then finally, another indicator here is the investment journey that it's taken. 76% of pioneer firms are now allocating over 20% of their AI budget specifically to generative AI or AI initiatives. Now, these are big numbers. And obviously, this could change and evolve as we go along, as new discoveries, as new things are happening in this landscape. For us, we need to then tie back to what does that actually mean in terms of outcomes that we are expecting as businesses, especially in financial services industry. Now, broadly, we've been able to categorize them into 4 different segments, starting off with the usual developer productivity category, where how do we go about automating things? How do we get started with better, faster coding, release cycles, deployment cycles? How do we make sure that we're not looking to necessarily replace developers, but making their life a little bit easier, faster, more efficient, where they can focus on a little bit more on the creative pursuits, perhaps in a way of speaking, but also taking away some of the more mundane aspects of the development lifecycle. Then we look at new, better customer experience or member experiences, in this case, where things that were previously not easy or possible, we want to make sure that those experiences are now available to different customer bases and user bases, which in turn would lead to new revenue streams or business opportunities, which once again may or may not have been possible without the advent of AI. So that's all great positive aspects of it. Then there's the cost savings aspect of it, where if you're able to optimize the aspect of productivity, optimize how you're using up resources, sometimes it goes the other way where you're using more resources than before. We'll talk about that. But the idea here is the expected outcomes that businesses are looking into include these 4 big categories. Now, for those following along and having conversations around API platforms, or when APIs first came in and the whole API economy discussions that started off a decade ago, a lot of these segments would probably feel very, very familiar. And that's not necessarily a coincidence, because we tend to think about these outcomes in those specific ways. Now, are there other outcomes that we could be able to achieve? Perhaps that's going to be a topic that we explore in this LEAP, but these largely are the segments that we are looking out for. Now, what's going to stop us from achieving some of these things? Obviously, there's already some of those investments that are going into it. We are seeing some early results, but the biggest thing that's likely to halt this progress in its track is going to be the notion of trust. Trust in systems that are likely to act on our behalf. Systems that are likely to be delegated to perform specific tasks without 100% oversight. There still should be an aspect of human in the loop, but the trust in the system is going to be critically important to achieve some of the outcomes that we are hoping for. Now, if I want to break down that trust a little bit further, there are two aspects to this as well, where we look at expertise on one side and infrastructure on the other side. Now, the expertise is quite interesting because the landscape is obviously changing quite quickly. You need to keep up with some of the developments that are happening. So how do you design these systems? How do you go about designing programs for both your API and AI, which is going to A, work closely together, and B, has the right degree of governance, security, observability. All of that is factored in. And in some cases, there's a whole range of new things that you do now need to consider, which we'll go into shortly, that you need to have expertise over, or at least have a trusted partner who will help you, guide you through that journey. Attending Leap is a good way to build that expertise, just saying. So now, which brings us to the obvious big elephant in the room, which is infrastructure. Now, infrastructure, the resilience of infrastructure, the scalability of infrastructure, the governance that goes into it, the security of that infrastructure, that ultimately is going to decide how ready, how prepared you are to turn some of those AI AI expectations into outcomes. So infrastructure, important. The question then becomes, is your infrastructure ready for AI today? Now, we asked a lot of people this question. Some said no, but a lot of people actually think they are. But when we probed a little bit further, it turns out that wasn't the case. So to decipher what that infrastructure readiness looks like and some of the problems plaguing this AI infrastructure, I invite Laura to take us through the 7 challenges that we need to overcome. Over to you, Laura.
All right, thanks, Buddha. As Buddha said, I've been spending the last 12 months working with existing types customers and all financial institutions to really understand what is going on with their AI initiatives. And honestly, it has been a ride. In the last 12 months, we've been from no, we're not touching AI to we're 100% going full forward to AI to pulling back. And the big thing here, when I talk to all, the CISOs and risk and compliance, there's 2 major of the 7 risks. They're the first 2, which are the major challenges that need to be solved first. And Boot, if you want to go forward on the slide and do a click. One, it's the security gap, and we're going to go a little bit deeper in these in a moment, but the risks really balloon with AI, and we'll talk a little bit more. CISOs are worried about that. The next is really for risk and compliance, zero visibility, being blindsided by changes the changes AI can make. All right. And then when we move to the infrastructure team, we find out that, the legacy infrastructure isn't built for AI. You probably bought your API gateway 5 to 10 years ago, and it's just not made for the load that is needed right now. Next is there is no AI catalog assets. Believe it or not, today, it's 12 years. I think the first API management infrastructure I built was in 2013, 2014. We're in 2016. Most people still don't have an API catalog, let alone an AI catalog. All right. And then go forward. And we are seeing what's happening in every enterprise. We're seeing fragmented teams. You have platform teams plus AI teams, and these are disconnected at odds, different budgets, different initiatives. Go to the next slide. And exploding costs. And exploding costs are not so bad if you know where they're going. The problem is really unknown and uncontrolled cost. Move to the next slide. Next thing. And really, you're unable to scale the AI. You can't handle multi-step reasonings, and for very good reasons. All right, move to the next one. Next play. And the impact is really each one of these challenges compound on each other, and the impact is really stalled and failed AI projects. And I'm seeing this more and more. And every person I talk to, like I said, when I first started, Hey, first, our executives' appetite for risks around AI was great, and we were moving full force, 100%, and adopting AI. And then now, after a few months, and literally this is happening in a few months, in a 12-month period, go full speed ahead on AI, and then a pullback on AI, saying, okay, wait. This is great, but we don't have any of these guardrails. They're running into each of these 7 challenges. And before they can take and implement another use case, they need to be able to handle and protect against these 7 compounding challenges. So let's take a little more
Yeah.
deeper.
Just one
Yep,
moment here, Laura. I'm
yep.
gonna just start a really short poll here. I'm quite curious to know a little bit about how people are using AI today. While we discuss the 7 problems, I'm quite curious to know a little bit more about that. So I'm just going to launch one while Laura speaks. Just keep that in the background and let us know what you think here. So over to you, Laura.
All right, let's dig a little deeper. Let's talk about the ballooning security crisis that's going on. We're dealing with new and an expanded attack vectors, risks, right? You've got to deal with prompt injections. You've got to deal with data leaks, right? You got to deal with credential sprawls and uncontrolled tools. So one prompt injection, you probably heard of, everybody, this happened in 2023, where automobile dealer put a AI bot on their website, and hackers were able to get the AI bot to agree to sell them a brand new truck for $1. You don't want to be selling and promising your customers a truck. These could become actual binding contracts, and you could be in on it. The other thing is, you don't want data leaks to occur. You don't want your customers' private data. We see multiple of these every day where the private data is being leaked out into your LLMs. So more and more of these security problems, and you need to be able to handle them. And most of the infrastructure was not built to handle these. Let's move to the next slide. Risk and compliance. They need to be able to see, they need to be able to govern, and you can't govern what you can't see. You can't tell which teams are using which AI models, on which tools, which skills, which plugins that go with that. You can't tell where your AI costs are by department. So where's this money going? It's one thing, and we'll talk a little bit more on costs later, to spend money when you're successful, but when things aren't going right, what's going on? So you need to be able to attribute costs by development team. And then, can we trace, for risk and compliance, can we trace that decision end to end? Think about when you're making a loan decision and the regulatory needs, you need to be able to trace and prove why a decision was made for that particular loan. Okay. And if you can't if you can't answer these questions, even just one of them, you have a visibility problem that needs to solve before you can really scale your AI initiative. Let's move on to the next slide. Your infrastructure, this is a big one. Your infrastructure wasn't built for AI. Again, you probably bought your API gateway 5 to 10 years ago. It knows how to handle REST. It knows how to handle SOAP, microservices. It was simple, request, response, predictable, and it was done. But now the AI workloads have changed, right? You're dealing with streams, you're dealing with MCP tools and models and different data sources. The infrastructure you need today is more complex, it's unpredictable, and it's ongoing, and you're just not built for that today. Move on to the next slide. Can't say it enough. I think like I said, I've been saying this since 2012, 2014. You need to understand and catalog your APIs, right? Today, this is even more important. You have no catalog, no self-service, no speed. You can't find where your APIs are, which are the APIs that you can use. And even if you find them, how do you use them? MCP tools. Everybody's creating MCP tools. They're cropping up all over, inside your organization and outside your organization, and being plugged into different LLMs. Not to mention What LLMs and models are you allowed to use within your organization? If you don't have a place where people can come and easily find which LLMs and which models they're able to use, they're going to go off and we're going to get shadow IT going. Okay. So you have no consumption visibility. So without having this visibility or an AI hub, your internal teams are blocked, your partners have no access, and your AI investment will sit there either unused and your shadow IT will explode. So let's move on to the next challenge. And the gap that nobody owns. I feel like I'm reliving 2010 again, honestly. Back in the day, it was, you had the B2B, MFT, and SOAP services, and this new shiny thing came along called APIs, and separate teams were set up with new budgets and different rules and responsibilities, and they were able to go off 100% while the other stable team was, business. Well, that AI team, that API team, and the MFT business teams, it was made into the platform team. Now the platform teams are solid, steady, running, can get up to 5 nines, and they've got their business objective, they've got their budget. New AI teams are being set up where they have, almost an unlimited budget. They have different rules that they're playing by and setting things up. The problem happens is this gap in between where nobody owns, where everybody has the finger pointing when a problem goes wrong. So you've got two roadmaps, two budgets, and really zero coordination. I think over time, these teams will consolidate, and we're seeing this in some of the larger organizations where they are merging, but this is going to be a big problem going forward, especially if you don't have the ones that we talked about before. Now we are here again, back to your AI spend. Okay. The problem isn't that your AI costs are going to grow. They are going to grow. If you are successful, they will grow 10 to 100 times. The problem is how do you attribute it? How do you know that you are actually growing and successful, right? So the problem is that no one can explain the costs. And this is a challenge that needs to be solved so you can put the gates in and the corrections in, and the business justification in, going forward. Let's move to the next slide. Finally, today a lot of companies just can't scale that AI, right? Today, your infrastructure, I should say yesterday, your infrastructure, I call it 2D, right? It was simple, as I was saying. It could handle request, response, and it is done. That was the transaction. It was logged. It was audited. Now we're moving into a multi-dimensional world, an agentic AI world where you aren't necessarily there may not be a human involved. These are agents making decisions and deciding what tool to use next and where to go next. So it's very, very complex, and you need to have the tools and the infrastructure and the accountability in place and able to do this. The people that figure out and have the governance controls and systems in place are the ones that are going to be able to really make use of this agentic AI world. The ones that are still stuck in the infrastructure of a 2D world, they're going to have the stalled and stalled projects. So, Buddha, do you want to show what is required to put in these guardrails in order to capture and scale your AI?
100%. All right. Before I go, thank you so much, Laura, for sharing the 7 key problems that's plaguing this space today. I want to hear from you, which one of these problems, or maybe multiple problems, are you facing today? What's holding you back? So tell us a little bit more about that while we head on to, now that we know the problem, how do we address it? So with that, let me introduce you to this world of the AI control stack. So as you heard from Laura, the idea here is it's not a singular system, process, tool that is going to solve this problem. You're talking 7 essential challenges that are plaguing the whole AI space, but specifically financial services. So This stack takes into account, it's a framework that builds upon the API foundation layer, provides an AI governance layer on top, and then finally has this interactive consumption layer for the interactive consumption layer for the consumption, obviously, or experience of interacting with some of the AI assets that exist. So let's go over some of these layers. The API foundation, as you can imagine, is pretty much to provide a secure, reliable, and resilient platform with multi-protocol support, powered by open standards, something that you might be familiar with. This is typically your baseline API management capabilities where you're looking to provide the right elements to connect with for that final execution path that you are tasking perhaps your agents to accomplish today. So how things connect all the way back to through the operations to the execution of these APIs, that's your API foundation layer, the kind of governance, observability, security that you would need to actually achieve those powered by open standards. That's your API foundation, and you need to have this in place today. Leveling up beyond that is the AI governance layer. Now that the conversation shifts a little bit towards end-to-end governance and visibility over LLMs, your tools, your data sources, your plugins, your cost management, how things connect together, how things reliably call one another to, again, go into that execution path when it comes to working with AI and AI agents. What kind of LLMs are available? What kind of tools can those LLMs actually have access to? The kind of data sources they're connected with? What kind of cost management do you need? And there could be multiple layers of cost management, including how the token prices work to the visibility of which business unit is actually consuming which aspects or how many tokens, and how do you want to invest resources appropriately. All of those elements form the basis of this AI governance layer. And beyond that, of course, just one layer above is your consumption layer, which provides sort of a customizable hub for builders to discover, interact, and develop smart applications or for agents to interact with the AI assets that exist. In this case, I am including both your LLMs, your tools, your APIs, data sources, all together in a machine-readable and human-readable format here. So that consumption layer, really, really important to provide that interaction. So now these elements obviously should not be piecemeal to begin with. This is something that you need to have as a solution that works cohesively together, that's built together, that works together. It's one solution solving those 7 problems for the teams that care about solving these different aspects of the problems in a collaborative manner without any gaps. Now, obviously, Tyke is in this space as well. We've been doing API management for over a decade at this point of time, and that obviously provides a great foundation to expand into this world of AI adoption and maximizing what possibly you can achieve through your AI initiatives. So if I put in the Tyke context here for the AI control stack, you've got the API foundation layer, where if you think about it from the API management standpoint, that's a combination of your API gateway, your MCP gateway. These are 2 gateways brought together. Again, you can pair that up with the dashboards and the portals and all of that. But ultimately, the foundation layer here is an API gateway that is supportive of multiple protocols, as well as is based out of open standards. This is now going to include the MCP gateway very, very soon. You heard it here first, coming soon. Stay tuned. Beyond that, we have the AI governance layer, where the Tyke AI Studio, if you've been following along, this is something that we launched about a year ago. Actually, I think the announcement came at one of our Leap conferences last year as well. We have the Enterprise Edition now available. We are now announcing the Community Edition this week. You probably heard it here first once again, where we have an open source edition of the Tyke AI Studio, which is essentially for you to try out, work out how some of these elements, the AI gateway, the portal, the dashboard capabilities, how they all line up for your AI initiatives. And being a community edition, being open source, that makes it a little bit easier for us to obviously stay flexible and transparent in terms of how or what the community needs. But at the same time, this is obviously backed by enterprise-grade support, and that's where the Enterprise Edition comes in. So if you are in that space, you know where you want to go, you want a trusted partner to take you there, that's where the Enterprise Edition of the Tyke AI Studio is going to help you as the next iteration of what we started a year ago. And then finally, the consumption layer in this case is a combination of the Tyke developer portal and the AI Studio's AI hub or AI portal. Together, we're calling this the Tyke AI Hub today. These are two separate things, but eventually, perhaps they will live together. But as of now, the consumption layer comprises of this developer portal where you'll have all of these different API assets as well as the MCP assets going forward. And then you've got the AI portal where you'll have these combination of LLMs, tools, and data sources that are available to you for building and developing smarter applications. So that, in essence, is your control stack. If you look at the path forward through it, what it provides essentially is a modern API foundation, absolutely essential with the right governance, security, observability in place, the AI layer that is built on top of it, a hub for consumption, one solution that is integrated without any gaps in design, and it brings together the worlds of APIs, MCP, LLMs, and agents all together in a unified manner as a unified solution. So, as we've spoken multiple times today, the landscape is shifting very, very quickly. Now, every other day, there is something new that's happening. You do need to keep up. Perhaps you need to cut the noise a little bit to understand what's actually going to be a priority for you. But every day that you wait or don't take any action here, that gap between your AI ambition and your AI reality is going to widen. Your expectations and outcomes are not going to match up if you do not take action today. Bringing it all the way back, establishing trust is going to be a combination of building expertise, places like this, having open discussion, trying things out, sharing with others. I think as a community, we can learn a lot from each other. Building that expertise is going to go a long way in making sure that you're on the right track, and then paired with the resilient infrastructure that we're going to be talking about later on in greater detail, that is going to provide the level of resilience, scalability, and reliability that you would need to actually achieve some of those goals for you. So with that, I want to bring this to a close. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to try out Tyke's AI control stack, do let us know. Thank you everyone who shared the poll. It looks like the winner. I'm going to actually end the poll and share the results here. I'm trying to see if there are any questions. Please feel free to ask any questions. We do have about 2 minutes. I think we'll take 2 minutes for any questions that you may have. Please feel free to do that either in chat or perhaps Q&A segment. If I were to just share the results here, I think you might be able to see it together. Out of the 7 problems, 7 challenges, it looks like the winner here is no AI catalog for AI and API assets. It looks like the discoverability still remains a problem. It was a problem when APIs started picking up and became a business value proposition as opposed to a simple technical endeavor. Close, very, very close second seems to be the fragmented or siloed teams. And Laura, I think, mentioned 2 of those teams between API platform teams and AI teams, but that could even extend further if you think about sort of how infrastructure team and infosec teams might also be siloed and out of those conversations in larger organizations. So pretty much in line with what we think, isn't it, Laura?
Yeah, definitely. It's very exciting to see this validation of the 7 challenges.
Perfect. The next session is going to be a very exciting one. It's a panel discussion exploring the next generation of API experiences for Gen Z. So stay tuned for that.